All right, I am here with
Brian Hogan.
And Brian, you've been, what is this now, 5, 6 CodeCamps here, 10?
Something like that, since fall 2008.
2008, so that'll probably be number 3 or 4 or something like that. So, and you are from Eau Claire, Wisconsin,
Yep.
right?
Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
And one of the talks that you're doing this time is actually like 3 or 4 people all together, and
Yep.
that's part of the book that you just came out with, which is what?
Well, we did a book over the summer, me and 4 other people, we did a book called Web Development Recipes, and we thought that if we all came here and actually showed, like as a live demo, just some of the things that we talk about in the book, but if we could put it together on one big project, it might be kind of cool. And so we're actually going to do a bunch of 4-person pair programming throughout the talk.
Really?
So it's going to be a live demo, but it's going to be like 4 people on, paired up and doing stuff. So.
Huh. Is this the first time you've
This is the first time we're doing it, and we're a little bit, we're still putting it together because making sure that there's no bumps in the road. So.
Okay. So we'll make sure this interview gets short so you guys can work on that. So,
yeah.
Okay, and so the book itself, is it just mostly a focus on HTML5 and?
It's focused on all the things that web developers kind of need to know now. I mean, your modern web developer needs to know stuff about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then, they got these new JavaScript frameworks out there that can really make things a lot easier, like Backbone and Knockout.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of great stuff, but we also think that in order to be a well-rounded web developer, you need to be exposed to things like version control. So there's a chapter on Git, being able to edit files in any environment. So there's a chapter on Vim, so you can learn how to do that. And there's even a chapter on how to set up a virtual machine for testing, and how to set up a secure site on that with SSL. So we really try to bring people from the whole range of what it takes to be a modern web developer.
Okay. And it's not so much. It sounds like it's not so much the server side of web development; it's more the client.
More the client side. We have one chapter where we do a little bit of PHP code just to show you how easy it can be with just PHP to send email form, to make like a contact form or an email form. Just because that's one of those things that your common beginning web developer is going to run into eventually. They'll say, "Make me a form that sends emails," and so here's how you can do that.
Okay. And then the other talk, speaking of web development in a way, the other talk you're doing is on CoffeeScript and Sass. So first of all, what are those two things?
So CoffeeScript is a language that compiles down to JavaScript. So it's a language. You could just write in this nice, concise syntax, and then end up getting standard cross-browser compliant JavaScript code at the end of it. But it gives you some nice idioms that a lot of modern languages have that you might be frustrated with JavaScript by not having them. So you get this way to compile up some scripts so you can modularize things and then ship it off to all the different browsers out there. And Sass is sort of the same thing, but for style sheets. One of the biggest, most frustrating things for me as a programmer is how many things in CSS are missing, like variables and functions and all these things that we love to use in our programs but can't use in style sheets. And so Sass gives them to us. So it's a pre-compiler for CSS. And I've discovered that by putting those two things together, I'm actually a much more productive web developer now, because I can use CoffeeScript and Sass together. And so that talk is going to be about how people here can use those things together to build modern websites.
So the advantage is that you have these idioms and these two, in CoffeeScript and Sass, that make things a lot simpler with the same amount of power. I saw a guy do a talk on CoffeeScript and said, here's what it looks like in CoffeeScript. Here's what it looks like in JavaScript, and this was just a lunge pile of crap, whereas this is very nice and clean and concise.
Yeah.
But the potential disadvantage, depending upon how you look at it, is that has to be precompiled server-side, and then you ship JavaScript and CSS to the client.
Right, and so most modern developers have some kind of a workflow where there's a deployment process that they go through, right? I mean, you're not just taking your code and slapping it on a server with FTP anymore. You're building this up as part of a continuous build system, or at least you're checking your code into a source code repository, and then you're pulling it out of the repository for deployment. So as part of your deployment strategy, you'll compile those files and then ship them out. I mean, and especially with languages like, what's interesting is you expect like the Ruby and Python developers to be the ones complaining about having to go through a compilation step, but it's just kind of one of those things. The advantage of CoffeeScript and Sass is so great that it's just fine to just go through a compilation step anymore. So,
and even calling it a compilation step, I mean it is, but
it is
more like a transformation, which a compiler is. So, but at the end of the day, it gives you the same power that you would get in JavaScript and CSS, but you don't have to necessarily know all little details and things that could bite you.
Yeah, it does some really great things for you. I mean, if you spend a lot of time in the web browser, in the browser console, just fixing your missing semicolons and things like that, or just matching things up, you don't have to do that anymore with CoffeeScript. You're going to get the JavaScript. It's going to work. It may be logically wrong, but at least syntactically it's going to be correct because the compiler step, the pre-compiler step, is taking care of all that stuff for you.
Cool. All right, thanks, Brian.
Yep.